Hello, everyone. I am woman FIDE master Adriana from Moscow. I would be moderating this session today. We are very pleased to welcome those of you who joined us for a long time ago, as well as those who are new to the Nurture community. Also, we welcome back GM Davor on the Nurture platform with his camp Rook and Bishop coordination in complex endgames. Now I will say a few words about Davor. Davor is a grandmaster from Croatia. He has been playing chess for about 40 years. He achieved a top ELO rating of 2,600 and won a lot of strong tournaments. Davor has a good knowledge of opening theory, and also he works as a computer scientist in a multinational bank. Before we start, I would like to explain some do's and don'ts of the sessions. Use chat box for answering. Use Q&A box to ask the questions. And also avoid spamming in the chat, avoid repeating the questions. If you're unable to log in, just please bear with us. We are adding functionality so you will be able to enjoy the chess content from the masters as before very soon. And we would like to announce that next week, the same time, will be other free camp on complex endgame, topic Queen against the Rook, a piece in complex endgames. Mentor is the same, Davor, so we would be glad to see you then. And Davor, how are you? You can start now.
Okay. Hello, hi to everyone, and thanks to call me one more time to your platform to start the lessons. And today lessons will be about the Rook and the Bishop against the Rook and the Knight, actually, in the complex type of endgame. So before we start, I must tell you some basics today about today's lesson. We will see the strategic complex endgame with pawns and also with the, as I said, with the Rook and the Bishop against Rook and the Knight, and why this tandem usually is better. We know from some books you maybe read that the Bishop and the Rook are strategically better tandem than the Rook and the Queen. Pardon, please, Rook and the Knight. And as I said, today we will see examples of one of the best grandmaster who use it is the former world champion Robert James Fischer. We will see his 3 games. By the way, I just want to mention too that the Queen, with the Queens, the tandems are simple, opposite different, and the Queen and the Knight usually are better than the Queen and the Bishop, but this is a question about for another topic. So we can see something, 3 games, as I said, from Robert James Fischer, who was the 11th world champion, born in US, and probably you know more about him. And the whole chess world likes the Fischer, and everybody loves him. But in general, Fischer was a very pragmatic player, and he was very good in technique position. And today you will see how this technique works well. To become the world champion, Fischer, after he won successfully on the elimination tournaments, like interzonal tournament, he beat, in the first, they played the matches before the instead of candidates tournament. So you probably know that in the first match, he beat Mark Taimanov from Soviet Union, very good grandmaster, Mark Taimanov, but this match was famous because he beat him 6-0 without any draws. So this is one of the best score in all matches in the chess history. One of these games was now in front of us when Robert Fischer was white and Mark Taimanov was black. And we will mainly focus on the endgame which arose after the Sicilian they play. So they start with the Sicilian. This is the game number 4 of the match. And as I said, we will focus mainly on the endgame which arose in this game. So after more or less Taimanov line fianchetto, they play the one line of Sicilian, and Fischer provoked the e5 move. Now Taimanov don't rush with the castle. He provoked bishop g4, and now actually after bishop c5, black forced to take the pawn. f3, bishop e6, and it's very hard to imagine that in this position the main hero of the whole game is the white square bishop. So look at this, how the Fischer transformed this, because the black has the weak point on d5, and this bishop, according to our knowledge, looks very bad for the moment. But after f4 and knight d5, actually white position is pretty strong. Take, and now black must care about the may go to castle, because the castle is immediately lost the pawn. And okay, just black played here the e4 move, hoping to take on d5. And this actually happened in the game after rook takes. White takes with his rook here, give a check. And with transformation, king d8 and queen e2, and now it's become clear that the black is happy to exchange the queens with the king stuck in the center. So this is our startup position. What we see, what we analyzed here. So look at the position for the moment. White is on the move. He played rook f5, and b6 is more or less. And this is our first, let's say, first starting position, when we see that the material is equal, absolutely. Also, the pawn structure is equal, 3 against 3 on the king and the queen side. Black king is in the center for the moment, right, out of danger. So let's see now. You will see that this endgame, like in many endgames, you will the first phase of the endgame is put the maximum activity of all your forces. So that definitely means white will introduce the king to the game, but of course the king f2, king f3 is not possible, because knight g4 is a threat. So the first phase of the game is to put the maximum mobility of the forces. So may I ask you, maybe, do you see how you in Rook is pretty well centralized, but is it possible maybe to centralize better the bishop? Do you have some ideas? Okay. Yes, I agree that the bishop f3 and bishop h3 may stop the knight g4. But look at this. And also bishop b7 provoke the a5. But it's not necessary to be with the bishop on long diagonal. And if you look a little bit more deeper, you will see that bishop actually is the most powerful, yes, exactly, on f1 to attack the a6. He attacked the a6, and black only move is to play a5, and now the bishop goes to the second good position. No, on b5, don't give a check if it's not necessary, but bishop go to f7, attacking to c4 and attacking to f7. So this permanent, he attacking to f7, and black, of course, must protect it. Look at this. White bishop is the strategic pieces. This is a very important for this type of endgame to know that the bishop is more strategic pieces. We use it to him to make a pressure or to restrict opponent ability. Why the knight usually is more tactical one. He always jumps somewhere and gives some tactics possibility. okay, now we are still in the phase of the maximum mobilize all forces. So it looks natural that Fischer play king g2 and go a little bit closer with his king to f3. And we can say that now the first phase of the game, of the endgame, is maximum mobilize the pieces is over. Black is a passive, his rook is a passive, but he still have to play, let's say, knight d7, and white go to the rook to e3. And now become, okay, how to play with black. And look at this, such a type of endgame is really, really difficult to play with the weaker side. Because if you push your pawn, then the rook is coming. So if black push the pawn, for example, on f5, then the rook is coming to the game with rook e6, and let's say rook g6, and with such an active rook, black will lose his pawns very soon. Yes, very passive. Yes, very passive for black. So black must still stay passive, and he start to go. He cannot push. Look at this, how the bishop is very good on the c4. He completely blocked the black pawns on the queen side. And by the way, he also have the problem attack the pawn on b7 on f7. And correct, black play knight b8. Want to transfer the knight to c3. Maybe he want to I'm sorry, maybe he want to some contra play on the d4 via the c6. But after knight b8, white played rook d3 check, little push, little black king, and now look at that. White don't rush with his king to e4, because king cannot do so much. He restricts the possibility of the knight on the queen side and fix the queen side. Look at this. After c3 moves and a4, okay, rook a3 now, and a4. Look at this. That's this pawn structure, that the pawn is on c3, b2, and a4. This pawn structure, try to remember this. This is a very, very frequent in many games what you play in Italian or in Rui Lopez. This pawn structure that is domination the bishop over the knight, because knight cannot do nothing, and white bishop control everything on the queen side. By the way, still the queen side is not completely closed, and this diagonal f1 b5 still in function it can be useful for the white king to go to it. But now white to black play knight e7, and white's second task, and I can say the most difficult task. The first two phases was quite understandable. Improve the maximum of position of your pieces and restrict the opponent with the c3, a4. This is quite common and good, but black defends passively, and now it's a question how to make progress and what to do. And this phase is to make some weakness in black camp, and exactly create second weakness. But now this is always the most difficult. I think it's the most difficult because this depends also of your opponent, because opponent can choose to not play any move, to stay and just, let's say, play with the knight e7, knight c6, and say, okay, I will not play nothing. Or maybe he will move some pawns, and then every pawn moves create the vectors. And whenever you are better, this is a very good advice from practical player. Whenever you are better in, like here, and your opponent don't have any particular contraplay or active approach, you can play slowly, don't need to rush. So Fischer find the plan here. He played the h3, first slow move. Yes, and the h4 actually was his plan, but look at this, he's like experienced player, play firstly h3. And only now after knight play c6, he go for h4. And the question is what is the idea of white? And the idea of white actually, if black don't do nothing, he will play h5, g4, and then go with his king to h4 and support the g5. Look at this. And yes, it can be also some weakness, but so look at this. If black don't do nothing, how the game can continue? In the game, black stopped the white plan with h5, but also the pawn is on unfavored light square comes. Just to see the line, yes?
Davor, there is a question. So could we go on f5 with the knight instead of knight c6? After
yes,
h4?
Yes. After, let's say after h3, he can go to f5 too.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good question. Is but then let's say rook e5. And more or less provoke, let's say, if the idea is to play g6, but it leads to pretty similar position, h4. And now the white will successfully play the h5, like let's say even this check and h5 is coming to create second weakness again. And basically every move pawn it's a very, very, very difficult to stop white to play h5, h4, h5, and his attack with the pawns. So after h3, let's say h4, also now just to show you line, let's say knight e7, what is the main idea? If black don't play nothing, and now the g5, that's the white idea. Let's say king g4, and look at this, how white improve his position to maximum, and now white pawns actually make a hole that the king can go to the king can rush to his camp, let's say on this way, or even after king f5, then let's say f6 also is lost because of simply check and take and king d6 and all is over. So look at this, how if black don't stop the white pawns in this position, let's say if he don't stop it with h5, then white just push his pawns forward on this way, and g5 and king g4, and he will make another weakness. But okay, game is not over after h4, h5, but this is a first start to create second weakness, and Fischer immediately attacked this pawn on h5 with the maneuver rook d3, rook d5. Look at this, he played rook d3 and rook d5, and now black must be ready what to do. If he play, let's say g6, for example, then white can prepare f5. Okay, right now the f5 doesn't work because it's not so good because of knight e7, but white can prepare it with bishop b5. Now the f5 is a very next move because the knight e7 with knight e7 is not possible anymore. And we see the mobility of the bishop even here. So black decided to play f5. But now white is very happy and satisfied because there is two future targets on the light squares. And he removed his rook and prepare to go to his opponent camps with the rook. Let's say now rook wants to go to the e8 to the back rank, and we can say that the phase 2 is completed because the white created two weakness, and now he starts to attack them. But somehow black also he stopped the rook e8 intruder. After rook e3, this is a last move before time control. So this is the move number 40. So Fischer just one waiting move. And also it's difficult for black to find because black also is some kind of Zugzwang here. He cannot move with the king because the rook is coming. Also, if he move with the rook, then rook f8. If he move with the rook, then again the rook is coming. So he decided to play the g6 because it's sooner or later he must play move. And now the phase number 3 is to exchange the rooks because he cannot go any more forward, and also black rooks want to be active. Yes, and Fischer, yes, he want to play rook d3, but also he prepared this with the king e2 and rook d3. And look at this. Now Fischer very nicely provoked the weakness of the squares. And my question is how you will proceed now, how you will play this endgame. What is the plan for white? Do you see maybe if you face such an endgame? It's pretty blocked, but there is one good way how to activate your king. Yes, that's correct, bravo. Keep the bishop on e8 and improve the king to b5, very well, or even to e6, a6, exactly. That's the plan, bravo. That's very good. So bishop will go to e8 and king will go to the b5 or e6 and hope for Zugzwang. Very well, very good, because the bishop has one of the best advantage of bishop is against the knight is that he can put the knight usually in position, we say, of the Zugzwang. So Fischer play, and look at this, how the Fischer has the pawn structure on c3, b2, c4. This pawn structure allow him, this pawn structure allow white king to go, everything is blocked. But c4, if the pawn is on c4, then the game is drawish. So the rules is that the bishop can put the knight in the Zugzwang, because knight with every move, knight change the squares, the color of the squares. You know, if the knight is on the dark square, he must jump only on the light squares. That's the problem of the knight. And bishop always can play on the same diagonal. He can play two moves very easily. So this is let's say the Zugzwang advantage, the bishop against the knight. The bishop can lose the move while knight cannot lose the move. This is one of the rules. And usually in the rook and bishop against the knight rules, we will see many times that the bishop, the Zugzwang is a very, very, very strong weapon. So after king go to d3, bishop immediately frozen the knight to e7 because the pawn is hanging, so must play with the king. And on the first look, there is no way that white king can go forward, but look at this. with move by move, exactly, bishop f7, king go to c4, king to c6, but again the bishop checked, and now king to b7, and king to b5. So white bishop, knight, white king almost go completely to the black territory. Yes, and now very good. Knight c8 is a very good move, and actually this was happening in the game. But just to check why, let's say king c7 is not so good, because after king a6, look at this. This position actually is the Zugzwang position for the black, because he cannot move the knight and he cannot move the king to not lose the pawn. Only move is actually the king. Yes, if he plays c4, he will, of course, he will lose the c4. He's lost the pawn on many ways. Bishop f7 or king c4 is also good. So, but the main problem here is after king d8, the endgame which arose after this, yeah, exactly, and this endgame is completely hopeless for. This endgame is completely hopeless for black. But let's see, black defends very well, knight c8. So is it possible, my first question is it possible to take the bishop on g6? Yes, it's a mate in one, everybody sees. So you see how much, yes, knight d6 is a checkmate. So you must be careful, every single move. So now white plays, of course, Fischer c8, and he give a check, because now knight is not on e7, so knight go to c8, he give a check, and king must go to c7, and bishop go to d5, just to d5, and again the king want to go to f7, to a6, pardon, please. King again go to a6. Black attack the bishop, and bishop go to f7, and one more time black stopped the possibility of kings comes.
Davor, sorry, I just have a thought about.
Yes.
Yeah, can you turn some moves ago, maybe 2 moves ago? Yeah, bishop d5, and what if knight goes on d6?
Yes, if knight go to d6, this maybe was.
And then knight e4.
Yeah, then knight e4, yes. And this is a, let's say, was the possibility of this endgame when bishop goes here and here, bishop go to g6. And this endgame.
Maybe knight e2, probably.
Knight e2, yes. And now we will see that the power of the bishop is actually, the knight is very difficult fighting against the h pawn, and bishop easily stopped the f pawn. So let's say here, if bishop f7, or I'm agree, bishop f7 probably is the most easy way, but also the bishop f3 looks the similar winning concept, because now black faced the issue how to stop the pawn. And look at this, I don't know what to suggest. Let's say that black stopped the. Yes?
Maybe knight e6 better, I don't know. After bishop f3, knight f6, knight e6, knight g5 after.
Yes, 96, but I think it's the same, because I just push my pawn. Look at this, and knight hits the side pawn, because the rest of the game, knight will be here, and now I can play with easily with my, let's say, with my bishop to just attack the f5 and go to f5. Let's say some white move like this one, and yeah. Knight is basically, let's say, this is a kind of position which can arise, and knight is without moves.
I see.
He can be locked for the rest of the game. Example, this is a kind of position what can arise, let's say. And bishop dominate over the knight, and now with the method of Zugzwang again, he will win.
Okay,
White
yeah.
can. But the question is very good. He can go to this counterattack, but maybe it was better. But actually, the black wasn't sure how white will win again after King. But Fischer used the method of Zugzwang very well one more time, and we will see that bishop can lose the move. Look at this. This is some kind of triangulation, what we can see in the pawn endgames. He played bishop b3. Still white king is stopped. Bishop d1. Bishop f3. And now we see that that's the problem for black, that if he play king a7, now the main problem for black is that after small move with bishop, look at this. Now the knight or the king must move and allow white king to go forward and to take on b6, or to allow him to go to c6 when all is over. So black play king c7. a6. Finally, king is on a6, and this position is quite instructive, because look at this. Do you see this diagonal and this pawn structure? Actually, remember this pawn structure. When you have the moment to go with your king through this diagonal, we see that the white king just go to the black camp on this diagonal, and on the a6 he's actually winning. The king is hero actually. Here after knight c8, what else to play? Only the knight moves are available, and Fischer just play one waiting move. And we see the face. Fischer, Taimanov play knight c6. After bishop f7, and now finally Fischer reach yes, bishop e7, exactly, and this is the Zugzwang. And now we already see this position that black is in a Zugzwang, and he must go for this very unfavorite and actually lost endgame, when the knight simply cannot fight against the two connected pawns on the one side and active white king. Look at this. And by the way, I must tell you that of course you know the value of all the pieces, but the new engines and new programs of chess computers calculate the power of the king in the endgame is the 4 pawns. You know, the king is more powerful than the bishop and the knight. Also, they calculate the knight is 3.3 and the bishop is a 3.4 pawns, little bit more than what we usually calculate, like 3 pawns. The knights and the bishops are a little bit stronger, but the king is a 4, rook is a 5, of course, and queen is a 9. And now look at this. After b4, take, the knight simply cannot, the knight and king cannot stop the two-passed pawn, and also the ability of the king to go to take the other pawns. Black want to organize the counter-attack with the hope for counter-attacking on this, but white pawns are simply too fast. a5, b5. What do you mean? Why we did exchange our c4? But he take the c pawn. Ah, you mean what? Yes, but the Fischer know. Yeah, but he knows it's. You know, maybe you mean here in this position that you can play king b5, but then let's say after knight c6, more or less sooner or later you must play the b4. This is only because yes, that's the answer. So, but he knows also very well that this is a very, very powerful. Because look at this. This is surprising how the pawns and the king so strong. Let's say after the check, the king don't go to d5. King actually go to b6, because it will be very, very unpleasant for black if the king go to b7 and b8, then nobody can stop the a pawn just to run to the queen. So black must lose another tempo. Yes, by the way, you was right. Knight g3, a6, a7 is unstoppable. I agree with you. Yes. So if we take, then simple pawn rush winning. Correct. Thank you. So he played king c8, and after king c6, king b8, b6, knight takes, and pawn go to a6, and all is black resign, because after a7, king c7, b7, all is over. So just one more time, we will see the power of the bishop and the rook. So first phase of the game was maximum activity. Look at this, how he played this bishop f1, provoke the a5, go to attack and stay passive the rook on f8, and then maximize. Okay, kings just go to f3, not to the completely to the center, and then he after check, look at this, c3 and a4, he fix but not close the door, not close everything. With c4, then the king never ever can go to the black camp. He just allow white king only one door, but it's enough to go to c4. And now he start to make a second weakness and provoke the weakness, and with the rook check, now he attacked the h5 and make second weakness. And only when he provoked the second weakness, now he say, okay, I can one waiting move, and I will change my rooks, because now we see that the king go to the a6 and bishop to e8, and with the method of Zugzwang, he won this game. This is a really brilliant one. So it check, brilliant technique of white. And now the king finally is on a6, and very soon all was over, and that's the final position what he have in mind. Very, very, yes, very, very close. Yes, I'm agree. Okay, now I have another game to show you, also by Bobby Fischer again. This was against the Taimanov, and also on the previous candidates tournament, he played against the one of the most famous player on this era. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mikhail Tal. So Fischer in the candidates tournament in Curacao, 1962, play against the Mikhail Tal, and this game also going on. Fischer was white, and this is one line, and Tal actually surprised the Fischer and reached very good position out of opening. I will not go to details again. And Tal position was very, very well. He was black. And of course, here, black can make the, let's say, easy the rook endgames, which is basically equal. But of course, Tal searching for more. He play here f5. After takes, check, and everybody thinks that the black position is more favored, because white c3 pawns is quite weak and white will suffer. But now we will see again, the Fischer is a great player, and he had such a feelings good for the bishop, and he likes bishop so much that even here he give up the pawn. Look at this. He pinned the knight, and after take, he gave up the whole pawn. he give up the pawn. One moment, please. Black is a pawn up. And after rook c1, rook c7. So black is a pawn up, but white king want to go, and look at this again. There is a weakness on the king side, but white king cannot go forward immediately because knight e2 is a fork. So the king mobility is reduced. So he play first bishop f4, and now after rook c6, bishop play bishop e5. Look at this. This is the first moment of the game when we see how the bishop is more powerful than the knight. And you probably know the bishop is more powerful because he can attack on the one side, on one wing, and protect on the another one. So here in this line we can see it. Look at this. Knight c6. Take, take, take. And the huge difference is that the knight cannot participate in the battle of the king side, while bishop very easily stop the pawn in his promoting action. Look at this. c3, but after g4, and this pawn is promote. Bishop just stopping, but now the knight faced a huge issue because the knights are very look at this. Knights cannot do nothing about the h pawn who is just run to promote. Look at this. This is a very nice example of power of the bishop. Even with the pawn, even if it's a pawn down, but the king activity allows him such a strong, look at this. In one move, bishop controlled the promotion in one move, and now black knight cannot control in 4 moves. In next 3 moves, actually, pawn is queening. So after bishop e5, Fischer played last move bishop e5, white played knight d5, and stop white king to go to f4. White played rook d1. And rook d1 attack the knight. Knight go to f6. And now finally, and of course, white move forward. So white attacking with the king, and everybody, white is a pawn down here, but he played for win, he did not play for a draw. And now it's a second time when we see the power of the bishop. Let's see, if black go to with his rook on the second rank. Look at this, white just don't allow f2 pawn takes, and white don't worry so much about A and B pawn. He just collect the pawn. And the pawns are simply not. So now the king is rushed, let's say. F3, attack the knight, and protect the pawn. Don't allow H2, G2 pawn. And look at this, take and take. And one more time we see with the black face the problem with his pawns, because white simply stop the pawn, while black cannot, let's say, play this, that. The pawns are simply, let's say, even if he played this, and let's say he won, but white, of course, white can promote and it's over, but also white can take the rook. So even after king f4, we see that white can give up the 2 pawns. Look at this. Okay, it's a pawns down again the white, and black has a 2 pass pawn, but they are so far from the queening. And white counter-attack with the king, active king, and bishop is actually the brilliant, the hero here. Look at this. Bishop takes. And it's over. Bishop e5 instead of king b6 at least. I don't know what you mean. No, king b, he must play. Bishop e5, you mean. Well, but yes, but it can be tricky because maybe you cannot just like that take you cannot just like that take the pawn. Maybe it works too. It works too. I can agree. Because, well, maybe now you will face the problem with the tempos because the pawns run too fast and maybe now it's some problems, but okay, don't worry. So Fischer play king f4 and Tal stop him with g6. He don't go with the rook to the second rank. And one more time Fischer play f3. And look at this. Now we will see like in previous game, but now only on the opposite wing. Again, the Fischer has this pawn structure. Do you see? It's quite amazing that he, again, restriction of the knight. Do you see? Very, very same. And this is what I tell you, how the bishop, this pawn structure is especially good for restriction. He played bishop this, and one more time is a rook c4. And now it looks very, yes, the same structure on the king side. And this position looks again the scary for. And now the rook g1 is not necessary because here is also one hidden line. He played g3 because after rook takes on a2, look at this, with 2 pawns down. This is the very impressed line. Tal didn't take. Tal calculate and didn't take. And here, even with the 2 pawns down, it's amazing that white has the tempos to take all the pawns and control the 2 pawns. Look at this. Rook e1, mate on e8. The first mate on e8, isn't it? King d8. And look now how quick is the white in collecting the pawns. e6. Let's say black starts to run, takes. Do you see what is a threat now? Rook g8, exactly, and lost the knight. So one more tempo. King go to c8. And white, yes, rook g8, correct. And look at this now. White can just collect the pawns and take. And rook takes. Do you see the mobility of the rook? Why is it important to have the rook? Because bishop very hardly will stop the 2 pawns, but with the mobility of the rook. And one more time, rook b5. And what do you think now about this position? Yes, h pawn, this guy, you know, the side pawn, h pawn is something, actually this is a green one. The knight are so unofficial against this pawn. So he pushed the pawn. Rook pawns queen e6. Just push the pawn. Okay, for the moment knight stops. Yes, the knights are the biggest enemy of the h pawn. g4, correct, bravo, Kian. And after a3, it is now maybe he want to promote, but the very simple, okay, g5 also is winning, but very simple method here is exactly bishop takes a3 and all is over because it's now g5 and all is over. So this is a easy win. But this wasn't in the game. Tal was come to this game, to this moment, and he calculate and he don't want to take because it's a, do you see it, even with 2 pawns. He go to the rook e2, and for some kind of defense, he organized some kind of defense of the g6. Don't forget that the black is the pawn down, up. But he's very passive. And now, of course, Fischer say, okay, let's exchange the rooks. And after a5, now white actually calculated it was in the time trouble, and now white calculate a5 was the very good, and the rook exchange leads actually to the drawish endgame. White must be careful, because amazing, but black king just on time, comes here, and it's a draw. So after a5, Fischer just played the king h6, one careful move, and now all is, look at this. Even Fischer is a pawn down, but he wants to exchange the rooks because it's a pretty winning. Can he play? King is so strong, and now after bishop b2, it's some kind of zugzwang, because if knight plays on g6 lost, if the king cannot play because rook takes on b7, and also if king play here, then this is a threat too. So this is some kind of also the zugzwang. Very nice move by Fischer, rook b2, waiting move. And after f4, of course, style going for this, but simply this is a tool of bishop d6 and g4 and takes and g5, and look at this. Why? How the powerful the king actually, how the Fischer used the king, and the rest is quite easy, because after rook d3, rook e5, bishop e5, and bishop control everything. The A and B pawn will never go to queen, and now Tal calculate very precise. Okay, entitled, because he cannot stop the promote, and he just give up the exchange. And good technical. Look at this. This is a winning, but also how the top players convert the advantage. Still very careful, even when the advantage is so obvious, like here, winning, he just play check, and king this restrictions. Still, it's a restriction of the king, and actually knight cannot move, and only what is possible to move is the pawn. But after a3, there is no single good move for black, because after b2, he will just give a check, say, and go here, and yes, and take the pawn, and all is so. So look at this. How Fischer, nobody expects from here that, let's say, that the knight and the king are so powerful. Look at this. Bishop is so powerful that we saw many lines when even with the two pawns, black cannot stop the white king. So let's say after bishop d6, and now after this is let's say maybe the most fascinating line is here. Ital play rook e2 and lost, and if he, let's say, play rook a takes pawn, and look at this, how the rook in just in few moves collect all pawns on the king's side, and black don't make so much progress. Look at this. White rook takes everybody and control, and now the poor knight cannot do nothing. Look at this. He has so many problems that he will lose. Okay, so I hope I show you how primary strategically can be the bishop is stronger than the knight, and this is I will send you, of course, the material.
Yeah, thank you, Davor. So now it's time for the questions, and we have 5 already. Question number one is from Leslie from Luxembourg. How important are training, sparring games, and analysis with higher rated players and coaches? At present, I'm taking just one training game every week with an FIDE master coach on Nurture.
Okay, I think this is a good experience to play the training games with stronger opponent. But in my from my experience, the best is to use the coach just to give you advice and coaching you how to self-study and what to how to and to actually to analyze your games. And to play chess, the best partner is a little bit stronger than you. Let's say if you play 10 games, if he beat you 6-4, this is the ideal chess partner for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next one is from Jasper. Which books do you follow for Endgames preparations?
Well, it's so many chess books, and depends of your ratings and the level which you like to reach. And I can recommend the books from the Yusuf, for the collection of the 9 books from the beginners, let's say, to the advanced players. And also the one classic books is from Shereshevsky and from Shereshevsky Endgame Strategy, and also Dvoretsky Endgame Manual is a very good one. And many books from the Dvoretsky, but Dvoretsky books are for advanced players, let's say from master level to grandmaster level.
Okay. Anu from New York. I'm very bad at calculation. How do I improve that?
Well, we are all bad in calculation, and you should do it by believe me, by analyze the games, resolve the puzzles. But the puzzles are easy because you know that this is something in the game. And the best for calculation is to analyze the game, but to cover the future moves, and the analysis. Don't, let's say, like we saw here, the Fischer-Tal game. And if you ask yourself, what will happen if he take the pawn on a2, and start to calculate, and this is the best way. And also the puzzles help a lot. The small puzzles in 2 or 3 moves every day, let's say 5-10 puzzles, but every day it's helped.
Karshini asks, in order to defeat 1,700 rated players, what should we mainly focus on? Are those openings, endgames, or tactics?
Well, I'm the classic chess coach, and I'm strongly recommended you to focus on the all part of the chess, all part of the chess games. You must know the openings, but basically it's not possible to win the games in the openings. You should know the opening, how to open your position. Also, you must know how to thread this position in the middle game. But the fundament to go to master level is to know very good, let's say, the end games, how to, because all the games decided in the end games, mostly on the master level. Let's say on 1700, maybe the openings looks very important, because you must first learn the tricks that nobody tricks you. This is quite important.
Okay, and last one, how many one-to-one lessons per week is enough for an aspiring professional player?
Maybe I'm not understand, for amateur or for professional. They asking for coaching, or I'm not understand fully the question.
As I understand, it's about professional player, like maybe me or something like that. How many one-to-one lessons per week?
Well, professional. Okay, the professional player is another dimension, and they work 40 hours at least per week, like usually. So this is like profi player, you must work a lot on the chess, and one or most of them is a self-study. And so this is I can say the profi player have a 40 hours on self-study every week, and one I don't know. But if you ask me how the, let's say, amateur player need from profi player, Yes, and probably this is a question. My suggestion to my students is 2 hours per week, one session on 2 hours, one good session on 2 hours per week. And then I give the self-study materials, and self-study actually is the most important then.
Yeah, and I want to add that at the Nurture, we have more than 100 plus chess trainers providing one-to-one training. So you can reach out to our support nurture.com and get more details. So yeah, Davor, thank you very much for this session. So it's time to
You're welcome.
finish.
You're welcome. And thanks to all of yours to participate on this session. I hope it will help you to understand more and to use it in your chess games.
Yeah, we would be glad to see you next week at the same time. Thank you to all.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you too. Bye. Bye-bye.